You want some of that hot and fresh crypto news?
It's a good time to say, holy smokes.
How was that for you music fans out there? Going a little old school with the intro here. All right, Bitcoin sitting at 22,804, ETH going 1616, XRP 41.8, highlight of the show. Down only 0.66% in the last 24 hours. A look at XLM as XLM pulled back a little bit as well, sitting at 9.39, down just over 0.25%. But let's get into the news. LBRY versus Ripple lawsuit. Why the SEC may actually lose the XRP lawsuit. Okay, this is not about XRP winning or losing, okay? The main concept of this story is on January 30th, there's a hearing regarding LBRY and the penalty that they had to pay to the SEC. LBRY asked the judge, they were like, hey, we think these fines are a bit much. But anyways, it was around like $22 million, something like that. And they're like, yo, this is insane. We got to pay that on top of lawyers' fees. Holy crap. So the judge was like, all right, cool. Yep, let's listen to what you got to say. Let's listen to what you think penalties-wise. So the judge granted that. That's what's happening on the 30th of January. So as soon as news breaks on that, we're going to let you all know. So make sure you hit the subscribe button if you're into stuff like this. And the reason it's important is because this ties into a story we have later where MANGO was declared a security by the SEC. Very interesting distinction here. We're going to talk about that. Now, the secondary key with this is this right here. Jeremy Kauffman, CEO of LBRY, pled with the court and mentioned that they have been going back and forth with the commission for long 5 years. While this period, the crypto firm tried to work it out with the SEC to avoid any penalties. So what he's sitting there saying, look, guys, we've tried to work with regulators, but they still wanted to go after us. Then they wanted to fine us crazy amounts after this. So the judge can also look at this and go, well, now, wait a minute. If they've been trying and you haven't been listening, maybe you haven't been doing your due diligence. Case is far from over yet in terms of what we could be looking at for penalties, because the judge could easily go, look, that's exorbitant. We're going to back that off. You know, it's going to be X amount. They could cap it at something like that. So if you're a fan of Ripple Labs versus XRP court stuff and how like peripheral cases are going, this is definitely a story for you. But now on to Gemini. Yes, the Gemini continues layoffs. Oh man. 10% more is what they got a reduction. Here's what we got from President Cameron Winklevoss. He said, it was our hope to avoid further reductions after this summer. However, persistent negative macroeconomic conditions and unprecedented fraud perpetuated by bad actors in our industry have left us with no other choice but to revise our outlook and further reduce headcount. Yep, this is now after the whole FTX mess, after Luna, after Celsius, after Voyager. That's right, these companies are still dealing with crypto hot potato. In fact, I did a story out there about Stellar losing, I think it was $13.2 million to Genesis. Genesis just filed bankruptcy. Stellar listed as a top 50 person owed. All right, so now let's get it onto this. EU may ask banks with crypto exposure to hold 1,250% capital to cover losses in asset value. Essentially saying, hey, look out there, you know, we may kind of do our own little rules and implementation. We may go after crypto in another way with collateralization of crypto. Now, we're talking EU stuff here. This is a big, big financial exposure. Listen to this. Amongst the terms stated, banks will have to apply a risk weighting of 1,250% of capital to crypto asset exposure in adherence to Basel Committee suggestions. This prohibitively high amount is meant to cover a complete loss in asset value. I totally get the complete loss, but 1,250, holy crap. They're also assuming loss with exposure of further liabilities out there. So they're not just predicting crypto at like a net zero, right? You'd have more of a 1-to-1 or 1 to like a 1.1, 1.2 net mirroring of assets, okay? The 0.1 to 0.2 covering legal fees and so forth. But like 1,250, that's an exorbitant amount right there. So basically, hey, if they can't get the regs done by governments this year, what they could do is they could slow crypto investments down by putting high, asset value ratio stuff built in. It's crazy stuff. Okay, now let's swing it on over. Binance caught moving $346 million from this troubled exchange. Who is that? That's Bitslotto. Oh, that's right. The drinking game has returned, because if you say Ukraine, Russia, Bitslotto, Hydra, and no, as I've learned, that's not something with the Avengers. That's a dark web thing. But say any of those during this next rest of the show, you have to drink. So let's see how you do out there, morning peeps. As per report, Binance is one of the top 3 counterparties on Bitslotto that received Bitcoin between May 2018 and September 2022. These details were revealed by the U.S. Treasury Financial Crimes Enforcement Network. It added that another user which interacted with BitSlotto was Hydra, a Russian darknet naughty marketplace, while another major user has been reported to be a small crypto exchange called Local Bitcoins and an investment website called Finico. And Reuters reported that Binance spokesperson has replied to the matter. They said the exchange has provided substantial assistance to international law enforcement. Binance is willing to support the investigation of BitSlotto. Oh, come on. Like, you know, there's so many things connected with Binance here. Binance is definitely something we're going to have to look out for. Ticking time bomb with this. Definitely ticking time bomb. All right, SEC charges Mango exploiter, with market manipulation, calls Mango security. CFTC stepped in and did this stable coin regulation part of that, saying, hey, any part of it that was done using any sort of stable coin, the CFTC is going to take over as a commodity. SEC comes in, calls Mango a security. Now, of course, they're going to do that. Don't let this be any shock here. They're doing it because they've gone after everyone else. So if they had an opportunity to go after this on a security basis as well, you know the SEC is going to go for it. That's par for the course. They're just going to drain these companies and so forth. But anyways, they're going after the man, not necessarily the company on this one. I just wanted to clarify that. All right, BlockFi to liquidate millions backed by selling Bitcoin miner loans. All right, so we've been talking recently about how Bitcoin price being up, okay? Being above 21,000, more miners are able to fire up their rigs. Now, the thing is this, yes, those miners are able to turn on, and yes, they're starting to make money. But think, they've had months and months and months of heavy losses, or where they couldn't even run their rigs at all, and they had to use their Bitcoin holdings, all right? So that puts a lot of negative pressure on Bitcoin. What happens to Bitcoin happens to the rest of the market. We all know that, okay? So now the problem you got here is you've got BlockFi to liquidate millions. All right, so now I'm going to read something off, and we're going to put this into perspective. I'm going to show you like how when companies put assets on their books, it's not really what you think. And we're getting a little deep in this. I hope you guys dig this kind of slower, maybe deeper version of the news. According to a Bloomberg report on 23rd of January, the bankrupt crypto lending firm BlockFi will sell off $160 million in loans backed by approximately 68 million Bitcoin mining equipment machines as part of its bankruptcy proceeding. It states, however, some of these loans have already defaulted since then, given the drop of Bitcoin mining equipment, right, and what they can get for their Bitcoin mining stuff and being under collateralized. The problem is if mining equipment is used as collateral, it's worth less than the loan value. Then the loans are no longer likely worth their paper value. Those bidding on the debts are most likely debt collection agencies looking to buy pennies to the dollar. Yes, pennies to the dollar. I want you to think of a company like Celsius, right? They had a whole mining rig situation that they had to sell, and they had to sell for pennies to the dollar too. People know right now that if you're selling gear, you're selling it because you're trying to raise capital. So these companies that have all this gear on their books, they're like, oh, we've got $150 million of assets, you know, of equipment, of panels, blah, blah, blah. That stuff is not worth 150. Maybe on their books it is for tax reasons, right? But for what it's really worth in the market right now, pennies to the dollar. Think of how many companies this applies to. So the whole idea of crypto winter is definitely not over yet because we still haven't sorted through the debt of this, right? I think we've hit the bottom of people coming out with the biggest debts. Genesis didn't even really rock the market, right? We didn't even see any red candlesticks associated with Genesis. That was another one filing bankruptcy, and the market's like, yeah, well, okay, cool, we're fine with that. But stuff like this where now you can't get the money from the loan, someone's got to pay it up, right? Someone's going to be caught, right? Hot potato. Someone's going to get caught screwed on crypto hot potato. So pennies to the dollar. So think about that. That's what happened with Celsius's auction. So BlockFi, if they've got 160, 130, 160 million dollars in loans, right, backed by 68 mining machines, they're not going to get nearly that. Maybe they get 30 million, 25, something like that. Maybe 40 million tops. I mean, that's nothing. You're still writing off 75% of it. That's a rough hit, especially now when there's still low volume, right? Even though we've got good price action, it's low volume. So these exchanges and places aren't making any money, making any juice on the movement because there's not that many people playing. It's like a casino, right? Casinos always win. Exchanges always win. The thing is now there's just hardly anyone gambling in the exchanges, right? There's hardly anyone gambling in the casinos. That's why their revenue's down. So when they get hit like this with another 75 million that you know they're not going to get from their assets that are on the books, yeah, that's a big hit. So these companies' books, right? And that, okay, let's just get in it. Let's dive a little deeper. So when these companies' books, right, when they start putting all this stuff on there, everything that you see on their books is like for their maximum benefit, okay? Always overestimated, right? Assets up on the high side, liabilities on usually on the zero side are fairly neutral. So trying to be as accurate as they can just so they could budget as well, but they're still going to be somewhat on the neutral side, giving them money for sales and ops expansion. Well, anyways, these books, right, that have been overinflated, all right, and usually where some of the debt has been deflated, especially projections of what their new capital is going to be. So what happens is these books just get messy because they're not real. And so when Binance says, hey, here's our proof of reserves, they're not even providing information like this. And what we're learning is information like this, albeit accurate, it's not accurate when it comes to the real market, when people know you're in trouble when you have to sell for pennies to the dollar. So yes, you may own 160 million in loans backed by a bunch of mining equipment, but mining equipment is not worth anywhere near what I guarantee you what those people got those loans and paid for it. The assets, what you have, are not worth crap compared to just the write-off of the loan. So it's very interesting. These books are heavily inflated, and like I said, cash is going to be king, and whoever has the most cash is going to be able to withstand the crypto winter. Well, that took a turn for a little deep dive action right there, but it's the market is still is very fluid, very dynamic. I think we all have to be very cautious. We have to be very open to all the news, all the information that's out there, because there's just so much happening right now. The LBRY case, I'm very curious to see how much are they going to pull back the fines, if any. Or if the judge is like, no, the fines stand, but procedurally, and maybe sometime, we don't know. That's why it's very interesting to see what's going to happen on January 30th. Also, extremely important to see that what are on people's books are not necessarily what companies have in terms of actual assets when it comes to liquidating. It still comes down to having cash. Still comes down to having cash. Stellar had the exposure to Genesis, top 50 creditor right there. Yep. So it's crypto winter, crypto hot potato. It's still there. People are now playing through the debt part of it. Anyone else that goes bankrupt, unless it's a big, super mega exchange, like CZ, Binance, something like that. Maybe one of Justin's son's programs goes belly up. But if unless it's something like that, I think the market's going to digest it, and big focus is going to be Jerome Powell and the Fed coming out February 1st. All right, so you've got the 30th for the LBRY hearing, as well as the BlockFi auction. Yes, I still have my cheat sheet right here in front of me. The BlockFi auction is also going to be the 30th. Let's see how cheap those rigs actually go for. February 1st, 2 p.m. is the announcement for what the next Fed rate hike is going to be, 25 or 50. 2:30 p.m. is the important part, all right? That's going to be Jerome Powell live on the mic. Don't worry, we're going to be live streaming that whole event so that you don't miss out. All right, well, that was a little bit, different, deeper take on the news. Let me know what you thought of this format versus the quicker format. But this video right here, tailored just for you, YouTube algorithms. So until more news breaks, you cool cats, have a great rest of your day.